A long time ago, a drought came to Romania, and it dried up the streams, and it dried up the rivers, and it dried up the lakes. It dried up the people. And with the drought came famine. With the famine came pestilence. With that sickness came a weakness upon the people. And when they were at their weakest, their enemies came. The Poles from the north, the Turks from the south, the Hungarians from the west, and they preyed upon the people. And soon Romania lay in waste. And the people walked around with their clothes hanging off their frames like skeletons. And the only creatures.
Okay.
Let's start from the beginning. Once a long time ago, a drought came to Romania, and with the drought came a heat, relentless heat. And with the drought came famine, and from the famine came pestilence, and from the sickness there came famine, even... Blah, 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 blah. Stop.
Man, they get famine on top of famine.
I know. Oh, there it is.
He's ready. Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Once a long time ago, there came a drought. And with the drought came the heat, a relentless heat. And with that drought and heat, there came a famine. And the people were hungry. And with that hunger, there came pestilence. And with the sickness, there came the wolves at the door. Their enemies attacked when they were at their weakest. The Poles from the north, the Turks from the south, Hungarians from the west. And the only creatures that had a full stomach in Romania were the wolves and the ravens. And no one complained. Who would listen if they did? There were no services in the churches. There were no feasts. There were no holidays. There was nothing to celebrate. The bells had ceased to ring in Romania. And the beautiful Princess Irina, she sat in her palace, looking out upon the desolation of her country, and she wept. Her children were hungry. She and her husband, the king, had sold everything to try and help their people. But still the drought persisted. Still the famine went on. And while she was there at the window, she put her head on her arms and she fell asleep. And while she slept, she heard a voice. And the voice said, "You alone, princess, can save your people. Go to the river, and the river will give you an answer. The river will show you the way. You alone can do it." And when she woke up, she was filled with hope. And she went to her children, she went to her husband, she told them, and her hope filled them. She dressed herself like a peasant with sturdy shoes and a woolen cloak. And off she went to the countryside. She went to each and every river. These once mighty rivers that spoke with a roar were now trickles in their beds. And they spoke with a whisper. But none of them spoke to her. And she walked across the land, and she walked back, and she visited the rivers once and twice and 3 times, and still nothing came to her. And now she was close to despair. And she was passing by the mighty Argesh River, now a trickle, when she saw a stream. And something drew her to that little tiny stream, this trickle of water coming out of the woods and the hills, and she followed it. And as she walked up that stream bed, it became dark. And she looked up, and there were clouds, thunder clouds. And she scrambled up the banks, and she got into the woods right next to the stream, and she watched as the heavens opened, and it rained. And it didn't rain for an hour. It rained all afternoon. It rained all night. And she watched her country become green again. She watched it come to life again. And she woke up the next morning, and the sun was shining. And she went to the stream bed to bathe her face. And as she drank that clear, clean water, she looked down, and it was as if the sun was glinting back at her. She looked, and she reached into the water, and she pulled out a nugget of gold. And another, and another, and another. And she filled the basket she carried with it. She filled her apron with it. And she walked back in joy to her husband, and she opened her basket and her apron, and the nuggets fell at his feet. And now they had the wealth so that they could buy seeds and plants. They could buy animals to bring back to save their people. And they did. They sent servants out to buy these things in other countries, and they brought them back, and the people started to come back to life, just like the land. And whenever she needed more, she went to the river, and the river gave her more money, more gold, so that she could help her people. And soon the famine was over, and she watched as Romania became laughing green again. And they say that whenever anyone found gold in that little river, that little stream, they would take it to her. They knew it belonged to her. They named that stream the River of the Princess. And for generation after generation, that little stream gave up its gold to the rulers of the country so that they could help their people. But there came a time when rulers came who forgot to help their people, forgot their obligation to their people. And the river became stingy and would not give a nugget again. And that's the story of the River of the Princess.